Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Customer Insight Series. My name is Rohan, and I'm the head of Customer Success EMEA here at Blueshift. So before we get started and I introduce my guest today, some quick context on the session, this discussion series. So the primary audience for this discussion is Blueshift customers, and the goal is really to have our customers connect with and learn from each other. So today I'm really excited to introduce our guest. Our guest, Fredrik, is a CRM manager at Dplay. Dplay is one of the largest video streaming services. They're global. And so Fredrik is going to give us a bit of background about his role and what he's doing running the growth team at Dplay. So before we get started, we had a quick poll, and the question is, what is everyone watching on Netflix or on streaming today? We've got Queen's Gambit, Schitt's Creek, something else, and End of the Internet. Looks like the winner is Queen's Gambit. I'm personally watching a lot of YouTube, tennis videos on YouTube, but it's good to see that folks are spending time watching shows. And I think it's pretty fitting with Fredrik kicking off and telling us a bit about Dplay and his story. So with that, Fredrik, I'd love if you can introduce yourself and tell us a bit about Dplay.
Hello. Yeah, I was not allowed to unmute myself, but now, okay, great. Super happy to be here and really looking forward to talk with you and to the rest of the people joining us here tonight.
Perfect, Fredrik. Well, would love if you can kick us off and tell us a bit about Dplay and the story, how you how you got involved at Dplay, and a bit about the growth team.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll start sharing my screen then, and I have some introduction video I want to start with, so that people know what Dplay is before we get into the details on how we apply Blueshift. So bear with me when I just shift microphone.
Sounds great.
I see the light in your eyes like the stars. Oh, I don't have a choice. And hey, love, we're gonna be fine one day. And hey, love, we're gonna be fine one day. The lightning strikes, the trees will fall, the lights come out. Our minds will be free. Hey, love, we're gonna be fine one day. Love is gonna be fine one day.
Perfect. And for our attendees, we're going to have about a 25-minute presentation and discussion with Fredrik, and then we're going to open it up to Q&A. So Fredrik, I'll hand it off to you to tell us a bit about Dplay and your role and responsibilities there.
Great, thank you. And now I've shifted back to my earplugs. So quick about Dplay then. We are a big TV company, of course. We have quite many channels. Some of you who are based in the US will recognize our international channels that we have: Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, and many more. But we do have also many local channels. And for example, here in Scandinavia, in Sweden, we have channel 5, 9, and 11. And many more. And Dplay is then the streaming platform for the aggregation of all of those TV channels over in Europe. My name's Fredrik, and I look after what we call the retention team. And a lot of what I'm going to show you tonight is not done by myself. It's easy for me to stand here and tell how we've done everything, but the truth is that nothing would be possible without the great team that we have at Dplay, and everybody from the CDP team that we have working really hard to fit our needs for marketing automation, the engineering team, but also to those 5 guys you see here on the slide in my team, where they are the ones putting everything together, and I'm just the one sitting here tonight taking credit for it. We look after a series of countries. You can see here Scandinavia, Netherlands, Italy, Spain, Japan, and the UK. And basically the role of what we do is that we own the technical framework regarding marketing automation, how we reach out to the user, so the technical platform for that, and to help all our local marketing departments to be able to reach out to the user with their message. If it's to engage the user, if it's to retain or to win back the users, that would be through the technical framework that my team is owning. And if we look into what's the interesting part here, and I think which is quite important to go through exactly how everything is working together, you have Blueshift here right in the middle. But this is how we have connected Blueshift to the rest of our marketing stack. And as you see here, we are using mParticle as our CDP, and mParticle is quite an important piece here, the enabler to be able to feed what we need in Blueshift. So Blueshift has mainly 2 data sources, you could say. One data source is mParticle, and it's everything regarding the user. So all the user data will come from mParticle, and any events. Of course, it's no secret that we are tracking quite a lot on what you're doing on Dplay. So your behavior, your purchases, transactional, will be different types of events that will be handled by mParticle, and packaging it and giving it to Blueshift. But then in Blueshift, it's not just user data you need also all the content data. And this is coming from a homemade platform we call Bifrost. So for those of you who know your Nordic mythology, or maybe just like Avenger movies, you'll know where the name comes from and why we picked that name. But this is basically enabling us to ingest everything that's available on Dplay, all the show metadata, all the pictures, the show description, everything that's metadata around a show, how long it is, and what different types of rights we have regarding these shows and the episodes, etc., is being ingested into Blueshift. And then we use Blueshift for, of course, the orchestration part. How should the customer journey look like? But also one pretty neat feature that Blueshift has is the whole prediction part and the recommendation part that we're going to talk about tonight. And to orchestrate in those channels you see to the right. So all the emails, push notification, and in-app messages are being created inside of Blueshift and orchestrated from Blueshift. We also have Blueshift managing paid media with syndications, which we're all going to talk about. And you see the dotted part where it's the product is not really live yet, but something that we're working now is to take those recommendations that we are creating on a profile level back to the product, so that we can have a row saying recommended for you, and to have the show recommendations into the different clients that we have, different apps, web, etc. This setup is basically to come to this, to have a life cycle. It's important from where we have a user who buys a subscription on Dplay, to be able to identify all the different steps or stage you have on your life cycle. In our world, we work a lot in between 2 types of users. We have what we call AVOD, which is advertise video on demand, which is basically free users that you watch with ads instead, that have access to some part of our content. And then you have SVOD, which is subscription video on demand, which is you pay a monthly fee and then you have access to all our content. And this is an example of our SVOD lifecycle, where you see you have different parts of your journey as a user, where the goal is to always have you in the loyalty program, but also known as the fat and happy corner, where the user is using the platform, watching stuff, and enjoying themselves on Dplay. And then we have all of those different programs we have chosen to call them. For example, the retention program should be triggered when you have a high churn prediction score, or maybe the cancel program when we didn't manage to retain you, but then you have decided to cancel the subscription. And then we have the cancel program to trigger up until you get terminated. And if the cancel program doesn't make you change your mind, you will trigger then the win back program. That's gonna try for a couple of months to make you come back to become a paying subscriber.
Fredrik, just a question on the lifecycle slide. I think that's really interesting. It's great to see built out here. How did you approach and how did you prioritize the different stages here? Which one did you build out first? Which ones came later? How did you think about that?
Well, the first one that came was actually the cancel program, because back in the days we were multiple click acquisition, one click cancellation platform, which was not really ideal. So we were putting all our eggs into getting the users into the platform, but then not doing so much about everybody leaving. That's where really all the effort came in place into the beginning. And that was the first program that went live is, okay, everybody who decides to cancel, what should we do to try to keep them? Because we are in the streaming industry. Of course, we are gonna have a lot of users coming for a specific show. And once they've been watching, they binge the whole season of that show and there's no more episodes, maybe there's not so much they're interested in and they're going to leave us. So our goal here is to try to intervene to make them hooked on another show. So maybe they come in for show A, and then while they're watching show A, we try to expose them to show B and C and D to make them, when show A ends up, then to have remaining shows with remaining episodes to continue watching and therefore to enjoy their stay at Dplay.
I know you mentioned an example where it might be a bit of an outdated example, but someone might start watching Game of Thrones and then halfway through the season, you'd introduce Chernobyl or a related show just to keep them multi-threaded. So yeah, I thought that was a good example.
Yeah, that was an example I mentioned to you that HBO did, where Game of Thrones last season came. Of course, the big churn was heading towards them because everybody who got the subscription to watch Game of Thrones. So what did they do? They launched Chernobyl mid-season of Game of Thrones, thinking that, when Game of Thrones ends, then we have Chernobyl to make them watch. And it worked perfectly. And this is exactly what we're doing also. Problem is that when Chernobyl ends, you need to have something at the end too, to make all the people jump into the next show. And that's the tricky part, to always have content to really engage your user. And Dplay is quite we have lots of content, and also we divide that type of content in two different types of content. We have everything that's local. So if you look at Discovery Network Sweden, we have a lot of local productions, a lot of shows that you only find in Sweden, and also many sports, right? We have the Swedish football league on Dplay, but then also we have all this Discovery Networks content, which is where you find it from the US. So Gold Rush, Ice for Truckers, and you need to find somewhere to combine those two and to try to make the right type of content emerge on the platform based on what type of user it is. The example I used to take is we have X on the Beach on Dplay, but then we have Gold Rush. It's not really the same type of user who watch X on the Beach and then Gold Rush or Ice for Truckers. So if you are a Gold Rush user, you should not really be exposed to X on the Beach because you're not so likely to watch that. And that's where the recommendation and it really comes in, to try to make you consume as much as possible and to make this content that we have emerge from this drowning massive content library that we have to fit your profile and to make you increase your consumption on Dplay. And at the end of the day, for us, what the goal is and what we do is then from Blueshift we can orchestrate all of those channels. And like anything in the marketing word, it's buzzwords everywhere. You have it here, omnichannel. What are we talking about when we talk omnichannel? Is to be able to have the same message in a campaign across all different parts you can come into contact with a customer of yours. So it's important to have the same tone of voice or the same campaigns or whatever. So it's not different just because you receive the push notification or Facebook ad. And all of our users, we work B2C. Of course, people are really demanding. Of course, when you go on Facebook, you have this classical example with retargeting, quite annoying thing where you go into a website, look at a t-shirt, and I buy that t-shirt, and I go to Facebook and I see that damn t-shirt appearing on a Facebook ad. Of course, you don't want to have this journey. You should show people who bought the t-shirt also, but those pants that you haven't bought, and that's the goal of this whole setup, to be able to know your end user and to be able to have the right message displayed at the right moment in the right channel. Depending on where the user is in his journey. So to the AI part then, we're talking about recommendation engine and how does it work in Blueshift. So we're ingesting this whole user data coming from mParticle, saying that user A has been watching show B and C and D and all of those episodes. So we know that. And then we're ingesting all of the content metadata that we have available on Dplay, so all the show pictures and all the show names and everything. And then we have Blueshift look at this data and create recommendations that we then use and put into all of those different channels. And how we do that, first we have mainly, to try to keep it simple, 3 different schemes in Blueshift. So what we have is that you have here, the first one, the block 3, is based on people, lookalikes of yours that have watched the same thing as you. What do they have also watched that you haven't? Because then you're most likely to enjoy this. Then you have a second scheme that's based on basically category affinities. So if you are watching Gold Rush, this belongs to Discovery Channel. What else content do we have that belongs to Discovery Channel that you haven't watched yet that you might like? And then you have the third one, which is the traditional, just popular shows in the country you are in right now. This is more counting than AI, I would say, but it's basically, of everything all the people in your country watching what is popular right now. And on those, we apply some, let's call it filtering, because we have different types of packages. We have different levels on the package where you have access on, when you have the lowest package, which is, or you have AVOD, which is free. So you have just access to some part of our content for free. And then you have the entertainment package that you pay every month, that you have access a little bit more of content without ads. And then you have the live package where you can see the live channel simulcast. And then you have the sport package where you can have all the sport we have. So we have different types of packages. And then of course it makes us, we want to be able to, if it's only increase engagement, we just want to recommend shows that's based on what are you able to see with your current package. Or maybe we want to do an upsell campaign. Then we maybe take the recommendations from the package above of the one you have today to be able to say, if you upgrade, you'll be able to watch those shows that we think that you might like. So that's why we have some different types of filtering that we have based on the different packages that we have. And then how do you take this recommendation engine and use it in email, for example? So here is one email. As you can see here, you have our recommendations. So you have the Big Bang Theory and then 90 Day Fiancé. But then if I just shift user, you'll see that the recommendations in the email will change. And now you see another version of 90 Day Fiancé I have. And then Alice and Bianca Showcast. And this is because I shifted profile. And how does this work in Blueshift? And it may look hard, but it's quite simple to apply, because if you look into the email code, this is the red box that you see here. This is the recommendation engine. And here we've chosen to use a pretty great feature that Blueshift has that is called shared asset. And shared asset is basically whatever you're going to use in an email that you know, this is not just for one specific email. I'm going to use that in many different emails. So the footer, the header, and for example here, what's called the A model for SC is the recommendation engine. It's because we create different versions of different recommendations to use in different times. And instead of creating the wheel again every time, we use the shared asset feature in Blueshift. And this is great to use, for example, this the footer is a shared asset. If a channel decides to change logo, we just go into the shared asset and change the logo into the shared asset, and then automatically all the email templates will be updated with the new logo. So it goes much faster to do any modification. And then if we look into this shared asset of the recommendation engine, how does it look like? And it's pretty simple, because the only thing we do is that in the code where you normally would put your URL or the picture or the title that you have, we just tell the HTML code to go look where the placeholder is in the recommendation engine. So as you can see in the number 1 here is the URL that you see behind the CTA. It tells the HTML template to go look for the block 3, which is, if you remember, the first block I showed you earlier, the first scheme that we have in the recommendation engine, and to go fetch for the product 0, which is the first product in the line, and to go fetch the URL. Same with the image, and same with the title. So it's really straightforward to use the recommendation engine there and to apply it in the email. And I'm showing the email now. It's the same with push, and it's the same with in-app. Now over more to the prediction part.
Fredrik, just one before you dive into predictive scores, I think it'd be worth just highlighting with recommendations. You know, you operate in multiple markets. I think over 10 different markets, each requiring their language localization. Yet all of your campaigns across these different markets are built in one instance, right? And so I'd love if you could speak a bit about how you thought about that setup, how you work with the local team leads in each of these markets, and also some of the workflow efficiencies and other benefits you get in terms of insights by consolidating all that data into one instance.
Yeah, so as you say, we have one single environment, one bucket in Blueshift where we have all the countries. It's great in many ways, but it's also makes stuff much more complicated in many ways, because if you take the recommendation engine, we ingest all the content available in all the countries, and some show maybe we have the rights to show in one country but not the other one, and some other country we have the right to show it in 7 days, and then it disappears, and then some countries don't even have that show. So of course we need to apply some quite heavy conditioning on the recommendation engine, that if you are a Spanish user, you should only qualify to see what is available on Dplay Spain, and not Italy or UK for that matter. So yeah, there's a lot to think about there, and it was a lot of thinking, of course, when we implemented this. But I think at the end of the day, we gained so much on having everything into the same bucket instead of having one environment for every country, because Dplay has increased in growth in many ways at a tremendous speed. And then of course, the ability to be able to scale up at high pace is very important for us. And this setup and this environment that we have in Blueshift has been giving us that. I don't know if that was the answer for your question, but yeah.
Yeah, that's helpful. And folks, I think we have about 5 or 10 more minutes with Fredrik presenting. So start to think of questions you might want to ask him around recommendations. We can talk about predictive scores, syndications, and paid media as well. So yeah, I'll let you continue on, Fredrik, please.
Yeah, so to the prediction part, since we have basically any user attribute and what the user are doing into Blueshift and what you're watching and all the metadata on what you're watching, this gives us the possibility on applying the predictive studio that Blueshift has, which is really easy to use and to create. So here it looks like into one of our predictive models that we have. Of course, I've blurred the different variables of obvious reasons and size of the groups, but at the end of the day, what does this mean? Not to go too down into technical details on how predictive models works, but you talk a lot about AIUC. So basically on what you predict, how likely, I mean, how good are you at looking into the future? How accurate are you? And you talk about one metric, which is quite important, is the AIUC. And we have on the different predictive models that we have an not an accuracy, but an average of 0.82, which is, for us, we're really pleased with that one, because of course, as you can see here, between 0.8 and 0.9 is considered in branch standard excellent. And this means that the Blueshift algorithms are really doing an excellent work at being able to predict the right behavior. So, and what are the behavior I'm talking about? If we look at the different possibilities you have into Blueshift, they are quite endless. So here are the prediction models that we have in Blueshift right now. Of course, the most important ones, I think, is the churn prediction. So looking at all the data that we have in Blueshift and applying those on the Blueshift models, we are able to predict how likely you are to cancel your subscription. And this gives us the possibility to act before you actually choose to cancel your subscription, to then trigger the retention flow to try to make you change your mind before you actually have made up your mind that you want to cancel Dplay. But we also have, as you can see, the different predictions on email or click, push, in-app, because that's the way we want to also build those workflows, saying that if you are not likely to open an email, there's no point for us to send you an email, because we let the predictive scoring tell us that if a user is most likely to open an email and to click in it, then we should deliver the email. But if you're more likely to click into an in-app, then we should maybe fire off an in-app instead. And then how likely you are to generate a video consumption event, or maybe how likely you are to actually buy something or to upgrade your subscription. So those come quite handy when it's time to build workflows to decide how to pattern into these different life cycles. So if it's the retention program, okay, we know a user is most likely now to actually churn. What should we do? Should we go trigger an email, and then in that case to what user, or should we trigger an in-app push? Should we send the user to Facebook, because that's the channel that they've seen shown before, it's most likely to interact with us. So it gives us the full perspective of the channels that we orchestrate to be able also to decide where should we send the campaign to the user, because we don't need to send and trigger the campaign in every channel for every user at the same time, especially in paid, because paid is really expensive. So if we have a higher probability to convert a user on email or push or a free channel compared to paid, then of course we should focus on that, because that makes us save money on paid to buy ads that we don't need, because we can do it for free on push notification, for example.
How did you think about rolling out those scores? So, when you think about the channel engagement and then the churn predictive score, I really like your example around the email prediction. Some of our other customers, they might have segment filters. So they might engage users who have opened an email in the past 3 months, or even up to like 180 days. But it sounds like you evolved that from the segment-based definition to using the email engagement channel predictive score. And so now you use that, and you've seen some increase in engagement as well. Is that right?
Yeah, because for example, where the open email prediction comes in is because I guess this is something that many of the people on the call recognize, is that, let's say you have a marketing department and you have 1,000 users. Oh, we can email 1,000 users. Most of the time, the marketing, we want to blast out that campaign to as many as possible, all of those 1,000. But if you sit on data that can say, yeah, okay, of those 1,000, we know that only 500 of them will actually see the email. Why should you send the email to the remaining 500? And then also in terms of email marketing, you have all this deliverability aspect you have to bear in mind all the time. Okay, how's my reputation? What do the users do with my email? If I can not send an email to a user that I know will not do anything with my email, and then therefore create better reputation with Gmail or whatever ISP it is, then of course we should implement that. I'm not saying it's easy, because it's hard, and that's one of the bullets I have in my next slides as learnings, is that it's hard internally also to motivate that, to say, I have those 1,000 users, why don't we email those 1,000? Why just we email 200 of them? What happens with the 800 remaining ones? Email is free, we should just email it. Yeah, but in the long run, we see that we gain more by really doing this picky selection on the channel, to also just send emails to those we know want our emails and do stuff with our emails. Otherwise, it's just for show. It doesn't do anything. I mean, there's no point on sending that email to those 800 users because they won't even open it. So that's really comes in quite handy. And that's my last bullet actually on the learnings page, is that get a helmet, because you're gonna do a lot of head banging against the wall. It's always going to be the same, even though you sit here with a pile of data proving what you're saying. You're always gonna have in the beginning this gut feeling decisions, people that will say, but no, but we always been doing this way. Yeah, but I have data that shows that if we actually just remove those 800 people, the results, the return on investment of this email will perform much better. Then we can work on how do we make those 800 people actually become qualified for email. Should we do something through push or in-app to try to make them more likely to open an email, or there is ways to work together, but it's going to be get a helmet, because it's a lot of saying the same thing, also heading against the wall. But one thing I want to really highlight is that this whole automation part can be really dangerous, because as you can see in the examples I've shown you here, since we don't write any, of course we do have some ad hoc campaigns, as we call it, like there's a new season coming, we do we create an email from scratch where everything is hard coded. Of course we have those type of sendings, but in the life cycle, you can see here the example on the top left, where all the content is being ingested automatically from what's available on Dplay. And here you see an example. The show to the left is one line, and then the show to the right is 2 lines, because it's a bit longer show name. Then what does it make? It makes that everything is not aligned. You have the blue line is not aligned, and the CTAs are not aligned. The example to the right, same thing. Same with if you have images that not the right size, as you can see with the red arrow there, of course it's going to affect how the in-app or the email is going to look like. So you really need to make sure that everything is clean, because when you scale up and you start automating, it hurts when you see all of those mistakes, because it's hard to control, because you are so personalized, so you won't even see how it looks like, because you have thousands or millions of users. Then of course you can't just go in and check every email. So it's really important to have a great structure from start, and to open up when it's time to, so that you can scale up at quite high pace, but also to be able to be really quick and agile, because stuff can change. We had a massive, I don't know how to call it, but quite a big problem where the main event that is feeding our recommendation engine, we call it the video session start, that tells us this is what we've been watching. At source in the backend, it was changed to another same event. They just renamed it. But for Blueshift, it stopped coming in events saying this is what the user is showing. So then therefore the recommendation engine can't work, because there's no new events coming in. It's a new name, but nobody told the recommendation engine it's a new event. And we had to quickly be able to just restructure everything, where Blueshift came in and really helped us out to be able to adapt this modification that came from nowhere, because it was, hey, by the way, we went live yesterday, did you know? Oh, no. Shit. And stuff like that happened, because when you are an organization, it's hard to know exactly what is happening in all the corners, and stuff is going to change. And we're working really closely with the CDP team, we call them, the ones who handle mParticle, and which is the main user data source for Blueshift. We have a really tight collaboration, because they are everything for us, because they are the ones that give us everything about the user. If they do a change, or if the backend do a change before mParticle, of course, but down the line, we are going to get affected. So it's really important to have a great relation with all of those teams, and also to have frequent connection or meetings, or to talk to each other, because if something happens, then you need to be, when you're down the line, to be really informed when something is changing or something new is coming. And also to be able to make requests, to be, okay, well, we are missing this today, we want to have this tomorrow. So it's really important to be able to shift really quickly, because at least at Dplay, stuff happen quite fast. And then to really dare to test the recommendation engine and the prediction, and to dare to trust your data, and to stop having this gut feeling decision all the time on how things should look like, or how you should build everything, because you're sitting there on data, and I know I'm not the only one saying that, and everybody's always saying dare to fail and dare to trust your data, but it's really true. I mean, we have a gold mine there, and we need to make sure we use it. And then also regarding expectations, to be really super sure or super clear about what you are actually demanding for, asking for, because sometimes it can be really stuck, and people maybe don't understand exactly what you're working with and what you're going to accomplish with that type of request. And to be really precise that everything you're asking for needs to be written down and explained, so that other people that maybe don't really get what you're working with actually do the right thing and do it the way you want it at the end of the day. So yeah, I think that was my my last slide. So if you have any questions.
Yeah, I think we have a couple of questions coming in. And also, I think that was a great point on the importance of data governance and data sanity. A quick plug to a Blueshift feature, campaign alerts. So a lot of our customers have started to set these up. If you think about, you know, recommendations not working because an event is not coming in correctly, you can set this up based on campaign volume, right? So if a campaign volume sort of like drops 5% or 10% day to day, you'd get emailed and alerted. That way, any sort of anomalies you're getting notified proactively on. So a lot of our customers have found that to be helpful, so that, you know, they can focus on the creative tasks and get alerted for anything that they need to get notified on.
You have it the other way around too. So not just if it's decreasing, if it's increasing from nowhere, really, that happened to us actually. It was luckily enough not the email, but it was with what you call cloud apps, which is just a custom JSON payload being sent to another platform. So it didn't do anything because there was nothing that reached out to the user. But yeah, you reached out saying, hey, you've been starting to send millions of cloud apps here on one day. Is that normal? So we shut it down. Yeah, so that was quite good. And yeah.
So it looks like we got a question. I'll let you field this one, Fredrik. So the question is, you know, what prediction, if you can reveal it, was the key insight, the aha moment, if you will, that Blueshift revealed throughout the subscription video on demand lifecycle? So are there any key aha moments around predictions or predictive scores that come to mind?
I would say there it's not, I think the question, it's written prediction, but I'll answer it the way it's variable in the prediction that actually I had when I was looking at the churn score. Okay, what variables did Blueshift find were important that has an effect if you're churning or not? And just because of that, I'm not remembering it. I had a discussion just last week with my manager about it, and we were laughing because we were looking at it about, whoa, that's strange. But yeah, email domains, for example, could be one. That's, yeah, just because you have Yahoo or whatever else, you're more likely to churn than people with Gmail. Or so yeah, it's quite fun to look into the different variables that you have into those predictions. And then of course, many of the variables was nothing new, because of course, if you haven't had the most days you have had between any plays, then of course you're more likely to maybe churn, because if you don't use something, then why pay for it? So those type of variables we were not so surprised with, because of, I mean, it's not rocket science that if you don't use anything, you stop paying for it. Yeah. So I hope this was the answer to the question, but yeah.
Great. The next question comes from Sophia. Hey, Sophia. Sophia is also based in Stockholm. So her question is, since starting to work with churn predictions, have you seen an actual decrease in churn customers? Do you have any advice on what you think about when setting up the churn prediction? Anything regarding which events to track with the model?
First question is, yeah, we've seen, of course, an impact on since we start using the churn prediction, and that it has decreased churn. And then the second question, please fill me in here. I just had. What was the second question again?
Are there any, again, every business is different, but were there any events that you have found to be useful that as part of the model that you can talk about?
Yeah, we had one, which is, when you think about it, it's not that strange, but that add to favorite, we have a feature like many other streaming platform has, that you can add different shows into favorite. That has quite an impact both on the churn prediction, but also, of course, to the recommendation engine to take that into account. So it was also quite nice to see, to get confirmed the assumption that you had, but maybe didn't have so much data on it, to have the assumption being confirmed by the data. That was quite a good learning.
Great. Yeah, we're getting a few questions on predictive score, so that's great to see. We'll get to the next one, but I just want to break it up with just going back to the omni-channel piece. A lot of customers, they ask, how should they think about messaging, different messaging based on the medium, right? So email, mobile, say with push or in-app, maybe SMS versus paid media. How do you think about the right message for the right medium? Do you have any tips on that?
I think it's quite many different things there that can affect, because of course Dplay has quite a young target group in some categories, and older in different ones, but we have quite many youngsters with X on the Beach and those type of shows. And here we recently did a big win back campaign, and in the best scenario you could say, please come back, or this type of messaging on Facebook, but you need to have in mind also is that people don't really get how this is working. How do you track me on Facebook, and how can the same ad appear on Facebook, on Instagram, because people don't even know that Instagram and Facebook are the same companies. And you have to be careful and in how you formulate yourself, because people can think that you are quite kind of creepy, that you know that they are them into those type of channels. So maybe into paid, you can't be that same way as you are in email, saying, oh, please, we know you used to be a customer, we know you churned, please come back. Maybe to think at having something a bit more generic into Facebook. And we had a campaign where we actually went out and said, please come back, and it worked really well. But we didn't really make it that personal the same way as on the own channels, because people don't really get how the connection there is made. But for us, it's more focus on own channels for the retention, because it's much less expensive. Because of course, I mean, if we can make people stay or increase the engagement on own channels, why should we spend that money into paid? Because it's super expensive. So the more we can keep it on the own channels, the better it is. But of course, in many times, it's own channels, it's not enough. You need to expose those new shows into paid that we have, so that people you need to communicate with those users where they are. And if you take those youngsters again, mail is not that great of a channel for young people. So there we can just forget about it. Push is same. Push is quite, you need to be careful with push too, because you can't be sending too much push notifications, because that's the same way as SMS. It's really writing into the user. It's gonna see it there, and you're gonna disturb the user in some way. And in-app is a great channel. I would say in-app is our most powerful channel, because one, you don't need any consent, and you can really, I mean, the user sees it if it opens the app actually. So you don't disturb in the same way. But then here also you need to be careful, because you don't want the user every time they open the app, you have it then pop up there to close if you want to watch something. But most of the time we try to be really relevant with the recommendation engine, because most of the time we maybe know what they are going to watch. So we just make them a service, because then it's just a bit quicker to get to what they want to watch. Because if we have a football game, we know that it's this football game they want to watch. We have it in an in-app, so they don't even have to click 3 clicks. They just have to click 1 click, and then they can start streaming their favorite team playing. So yeah, you have to really have in mind of those different type of channels and what they are good for and maybe less good for.
Yeah, that's helpful. So going back to predictive scores, this is a question we get sometimes, which is, have you tried to build models internally, so at Dplay? And if yes, how have they compared with the models built by Blueshift, Blueshift built in-house? And before you dive into that, I'll just speak very briefly about that. As a platform, we are flexible and extensible, and oftentimes our customers have data science teams which are building things like these predictive scores. Sometimes they have data within their own systems that they're not passing into Blueshift. So we encourage you to, build out your scores and pull them into Blueshift. It's very easy to do that. At the same time, we build scores very easily, based on events or channel engagement. And it's pretty simple to get them set up where they're continuously updated and they're ready to use and available in campaigns. So yeah, if we encourage teams to use both, and of course, test them against each other's to see which ones work well. Take a look at their things like the AUC curves and these sort of things to see how accurate they're performing as well. So with that, I'll hand it off to you, Fredrik. What has your experience been working with your internal, maybe data science teams, and then using the Blueshift scores that we've built in the platform?
Well, actually, what you said is exactly how it went with Dplay. We don't have a dedicated data science team for Dplay, but for discovery. And then of course, then yeah, the lead times were really long. And then as soon as you want to do something, it takes forever. And in the best case of the scenarios, I would get granted, yeah, Fredrik, you're allowed to hire 20 data scientists to just build models and to ingest them into Blueshift. And that would be the ideal scenario. But here we find a compromising solution where, okay, we have this internal team that maybe is not ideal in terms of pace that Dplay has, and then you have the Blueshift data science team that we have access to by just being customers. So we did an initial test. It was not that big, we can be honest and say that, but the Blueshift models did actually win. But then we decided to put all our eggs into the Blueshift models and to aim for that into our growth. But then, yeah, if in 4, 5, 6, 10 years, if we come to a solution where we think that, okay, then having own data scientists building own models is performing better, has better AUCs than the Blueshift ones, then of course, then maybe we'll be shifting to that. But for now, Blueshift is a perfect fit, perfect suit that we can have on for us, and it's easy to scale up, and then we should use that. And that's what we're doing.
Great. So maybe talk a bit about what's next. What's next for the next 3 to 6 months at Dplay? What's on your plate? What are you excited to continue building out and maybe even modifying and testing?
Yeah, there are things I would love to be sharing right now that is happening really soon. Some days maybe also, but I can't really share that. But one of the main objectives that we have right now is what I mentioned in the beginning, is to take, since we have basically all our marketing is fed by the recommendation engine, we are able to expose those. It's great, but what about the product? What about the user experience inside the app to be able to actually have this like Netflix have? And Netflix, at least in Scandinavia, are almost the only ones that have this recommendation row. If you look at our other friends in the same business, nobody really has recommendation rails the same way. And that's what we really want to aim, is to take those recommendations, because Blueshift has also this feature. You have live content that makes it really easy to just take those recommendations and just display them whatever you want. So we have everything. We have the rails that are empty. We have live content ready in Blueshift. We just need to make that connection in between, and then we'll be able to launch recommendations into products. So this is the biggest thing coming, to be able to launch recommendations into product. I'm really looking forward to have that, because it's gonna be great for the user experience to have that. But
that's exciting. That's exciting stuff. We have another question here. So we have a few folks who work in paid media. They're on the acquisition side. They want to know how you got started with the audiences that you're pushing from, say, you've got all this rich first-party customer data in Blueshift. Which audiences are you getting started with, pushing out to Facebook or other paid channels? What did you find to be kind of the low-hanging fruit opportunity? And yeah, really, how did you get started, and maybe how are things going to evolve over time on the paid media side?
Yeah, I would say here you have different couple of things here. First, we do have also particle feeding audiences to paid, but why we decided to do it from Blueshift is because it's not only about, yes, send all the active users to Facebook so that we can exclude them from campaigns. It's also, okay, give me everybody who scored to be wanting to watch X on the beach. That's gold, to be able to send that to Facebook, to have a lookalike campaign based on everybody you think or know, based on the recommendations that they are scored to like the X on the beach show, for example. But yeah, we have what we call the always on. So we do have our segments that as soon as you become active, or what different type of package that are in syndications into paid, to be able to either do lookalikes or to do exclusion. But then we have also custom campaigns when we have a new season of a big show that's coming. Then we want to take everybody who's been watching this show to be able to either target them, saying there's a new season coming, or to just take them as lookalikes and use that into the campaigns. And I think what to have in mind here, I mean, it's maybe not everybody's case, but for our case, at least it is that way, is that Discovery is a really big company. I think we are like 20,000 employees. The buying is centralized, so not only for Dplay, but for all the different brands. And it can take time, and at the communications here back to really have a good communications in between the teams is really important, because it took us a while to get started, to have access to the Facebook accounts, to the Google accounts, etc., to be able to sync Blueshift with those accounts, to be able to send everybody who's scored to be most likely to want to watch X on the beach, for example.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Great. So we'll start to wrap up here. I've got one more question for you. And it's really around, you probably have regular meetings with your team and your managers. Are there any features, maybe dashboards or insights or anything else in Blueshift that you've found to help you from a reporting perspective, or just to showcase the effectiveness of the retention program and the progress in metrics and performance over time?
I think when you talk about CRM or marketing automation or whatever companies call it, when we talk about the email push in-app, it's most often quite hard to know, okay, how much did this email actually generate? Okay, how many conversions did we get, or how did it perform, or how, in our case, how many video stars did it actually create? And that's where the attribution part in Blueshift is for us gold, because in the previous, when we had a Adobe campaign, I mean, maybe the equivalent is there some, but on other platforms, but you need different platforms to be able to do the same, and to be able to really see, okay, how is this email performing? So the attribution part on Blueshift, to be able to see exactly how many of those events are being generated thanks to this campaign specific email, is really great for us to be able to measure what we do. If we see that, if we take automated programs from the life cycle, if we see that some part of the retention program is dipping in engagement because, I don't know, something happened, it's really great to see that, to get an alert saying, okay, the retention program step 3 has lower engagement success than usual. You need to intervene. It's really great to have that in-house also in Blueshift, and not to have a third party again to go look and see, okay, how did this email, I did this way in Blueshift, I'm gonna go find this email in my third platform and see how did it perform, and then you have to make it talk back into Blueshift. You have all of that into Blueshift. So it's really great for us to be able to use that, and to be sure and to see what we are actually doing with all of those different campaigns and channels, and when we orchestrate it. So I would say that's the main thing.
Okay, that's great to hear. Sorry, you were going to say something about KPIs?
A KPI goals, so the feature, the attribution and goals, where you can make events in Blueshift become goals of the campaigns, and to then take those metrics and create custom goals, I think you call it, or KPIs, to be able to see, okay, so if we take the amount of video start divided by the amount of clicks in the email, we have a KPI. We see, okay, this email did actually generate, let's say 25% engagement success. And then therefore it makes it really easy, at least for me, to have a good overview of what is happening in Blueshift, and where should we intervene, or where should we don't do anything, let's say, because everything is working well. So it's a really great feature.
That's great. Yeah, you touched on a couple important pieces there. One is just having more of your workflow contained in one platform. So you're not going between your marketing automation platform and reporting and analytics. So we're trying to bring more reporting into Blueshift, and we'll see more of that over the next few months. And then another thing is, setting things like custom goals. So any event that you're passing into Blueshift, you can define that as a custom goal, make it available in campaign reporting and insights reporting, and build things like these compound metrics. So, based on any events that are interesting to you as a business, whether it's video session start or anything else, you can create different engagement metrics so that you're really reporting and monitoring what's important to you. So great, that's a great point. Perfect. Well, I think that brings us to the top of the hour. Fredrik, thank you so much for sharing your learnings, your insights with our audience. We're looking forward to having more customer insight series so our customers can learn from each other. But for now, thank you everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, and I'm happy to be part of this webinar. And I hope that people that were online actually thought it interesting and maybe learned something or got inspired.
Great. Thanks, Fredrik. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Cheers. Bye.